Good evening, and welcome to the Watchmen's Report. I'm Cody Higley, and tonight we're joined by our regular co-hosts, Jason Foreman and Robert Landon. Boys, welcome. And tonight we're going to talk about one of the biggest issues in Marion political history, something that everybody needs to be aware of and hopefully is researching themselves, is the Home Rule City Charter ballot initiative, which is appearing on the ballot this November, November 4th. And who better? I know we don't have a special guest or anything, just the three of us, the three boys tonight. Uh, but who better to talk about the charter than with the man himself who, as councilman representing the first ward back in 2018, I think you were, what, 27 years old back then, Robert?
Yeah, something like that.
He brought this matter up in council during his first term as Marion City Councilman. So we'll find out what was attractive about the charter back in 2018 and kind of the historical movement to the point where we're at today and it finally getting on the ballot. And then for those of you who don't know, I also am the administrator of the charter information page. So we're going to pull that up, kind of go through. I try to have it as a objective source of information about the charter, pros, cons, feature information published by the candidates, the 23 candidates out there, at least the ones that have taken a position or said something. Unfortunately, many of them haven't. Just to have it as a community resource for people to reference so that they're making an informed decision, because we don't have any type of government if you don't have active participation by the voters. And the most characteristic element of active participation is being informed. So that's what we're going to try to do tonight. And I encourage you all to go check out that page and learn up on the charter. So Robert, uh, tell us kind of the backstory on, you get elected in November of 2017. You pull off one of the greatest political upsets in the history of Marion City politics by dethroning Ralph Cumston, who was in there for, how long was it? Like 22 years, 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty early on in your term, you bring Gary Hunter of the Ohio Municipal League, the attorney, who's kind of the reputation is kind of the guru of charters. He's actually going to be speaking tomorrow night at the League of Women Voters Candidates Night, which I believe every candidate running for office in the city of Marion, including those 23 charter candidates, have all been invited. And Gary Hunter is going to be the guest speaker. I think he's going to kick off the event. And I think they've got some local podcaster or something is playing host. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I think it's Sean Spears or yeah, he's a low volume podcaster.
Oh
Really,
yeah, the guy that does the fruitcake toss. Oh
yeah,
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 and
that
he like,
guy.
okay, yeah, and he like interviews a lot of like old or dead people. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He's the moderator, the guest host. So
Mhm.
that event is at 7:30. Jason, do you got that little flyer that the League of Women Voters put up just so folks, if they are able to attend or want to attend, they can check it out? It should be fairly recent on there. I think it starts at 7:30.
That sounds right.
It is 7:30 is the debate night now. At 6:30 or 7 o'clock, I don't exactly recall because I can't be there at that time. But I believe they're doing that presentation is Gary Hunter at like 6 or 6:30. They have a few things going on.
There it is. There it is. Sorry, folks. I thought that it was earlier up on the thread on the page, but there's your ad. So doors open at 5:45. Program begins at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be Gary Hunter of the Ohio Municipal League, kind of giving a background of what is Charter City. And then the candidates night starts at 7 o'clock, or doors open at 7, broadcast at 7:30. So if you can make it, and where's it held at? The Marion Senior Center. Well, that seems like an appropriate location. But yeah, check it out and hear straight from the horse's mouths, what they have to say. And I don't know how good the questions are going to be. As I understand, you got 23 people that potentially could be up there for the charters, or how in depth are you going to get? And then I think the questions are going to come from the audience, and then the moderator is going to pick from those questions. So you never quite know, if you're going to get a good question through, or will it be censored? Will that implicit bias of the moderator come out? I don't know. But if nothing else, you can kind of corner one of those candidates afterwards or before, and maybe get some good information that way. So,
I mean, some of them really like to talk. They like to write about it and talk about it, but some of them we just can't get. We can't get any, discussion out of. It's kind of frustrating.
Yeah,
there's quite a few of them that haven't. And then the league, when they sent the questionnaires out, which they post on their site, which I think is like 411.org or vote 411, something like that. They asked 2 questions of the candidates. On my charter page, I sent out questionnaires. I think I had 5 questions plus background information and or bio information, and only received a handful, which is very disappointing that these people are wanting to run for this very, very important charter commission, and then they can't even answer 5 questions. And I was very fair in the questioning. Every single question was the same to each of the candidates. So, it is what it is. I think out of the 23, you can probably find 15 that might be decent. And in reality, in order to have control, you're going to need 8 votes. So if you can get 8 good people out of the 23, then you've got a good shot. But let's backtrack a little bit here. Robert, again, you start out 2018, enter office January 1st, 2018, and pretty early on, you brought this charter idea to city government at a council meeting and invited Gary Hunter. So what was your motivation for that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say that nobody's going to be more passionate about this process and in the city charter than me. You've got some people out there that are somewhat passionate, and they think they're running because they're fixing a problem more so than being visionary. They're being reactionary than being proactionary. If I'm going to make up a word here. So I started this discussion back in 2018. I'm about 7-8 months into my council term. Just had gotten elected in November of 17, took office January 2018. And being the person I am, I'm always looking to the future. I'm always looking at what's ahead, what's the problems that lie ahead, what are the solutions to those problems. And I wanted to take that into city government because I took the job seriously. I didn't want to just occupy an office for 20 years. I'd rather be a one and done or a 2 and done term person and had something that I can hang my hat on at the end of the day. My kids could grow up and say, hey, my dad did that, and be proud of it. So in August of 2018, I invited Gary Hunter, who I'm not sure if he's still with the Ohio Municipal League. I think the League of Women Voters. Okay.
Yep, he is.
They listed him as Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association, so it must just be both now. But he was with the Ohio Municipal League. He was like the foremost expert, so to speak, on the city charter. So I'm like, hey, this piques my interest. I see a lot of communities in Ohio that are charter cities. They're doing well. And as I studied it, it really, and I just wrote this article about this, it really goes back to about 800 years ago in England when we had the Magna Carta. And as we know, the barons got together and they forced the king to sign the Magna Carta to restrict his power. This was like the most revolutionary thing that people have done, going back to the Roman Republic days, going back to Greek democracy days, because 90% of world history, we've been under dictatorships, we've been under kings and feudal systems and all these things. And so when you really study that out, really a Magna Carta is really a charter. It was a legal document that restricted power. And essentially, that's what a city charter allows you to do. It allows you to restrict power. And contrary to what these people out here who are parroting propaganda would like you to believe, is that this is an attempt to get control, or this is an attempt for a small group of elites to, protect themselves and so on. Now, that's not to say that you don't have people in office or in the government that don't have interest. Everybody really has an interest at the end of the day. So, but the problem is with that narrative is that this process is still governed by the state of Ohio. And for good reason. You don't want cities in Ohio running amok and creating little fiefdoms, so to speak. But it was designed by our state government to allow local governments to have a little bit more control, meaning, what do you want your government to look like? How do you want it to operate? It gives you more flexibility to change the structure, to change some of the policies. You can create more oversight mechanisms to restrict power. For instance, we can have right now, I think we're weak mayor. You can go strong mayor or vice versa. I'm a little off on that right now. So you can go either or. You can have a city manager that's appointed by city council, and that makes them operate like any kind of corporation. Board of directors appoint their CEOs. Nonprofits appoint their executive directors. Churches appoint pastors. Their boards appoint pastors. This is it's really the most common form of structural oversight. If you think about Great Britain, the United Kingdom, you think about France, and most what we call democratic systems today are parliamentarian systems, where they have a parliament, essentially their Congress, and they appoint prime ministers, as opposed to how we do it. We elect our president directly. And not debating that on the national level. Obviously, I'm American, full-blooded American, and I believe in having a president. But at the local level,
depends on the president, Robert.
What's that?
I said it depends on the president.
That's true too. I mean, goodness, if we could have gotten Biden out of there, a lot sooner. I mean, where would we be
today? Bernie's Biden. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't be dealing with auto pens for 4 years.
Interrupt.
So it really depends too on local government, because local government can kind of get a little wacky sometimes, and you have so many elected positions that you essentially have fiefdoms. For instance, let's look at the county level. We had so many issues with our Marion County Clerk of Courts for years. Both parties agreed that needed to be fixed, and it did need to be fixed. And it took the state of Ohio stepping in to be able to help make that happen. But really, nobody locally, none of the local officials had authority to reprimand her, because she was elected official. And there's good things to that, right? The more people was the thought process back in the day, the more people that's directly elected by the people, the better. And to an extent, that's true. But we also have to have mechanisms where we can remove people who are not acting in the best interest of the people. So that brings me to the next point. I mean, we have the ability to recall as it stands now, but when you have a charter, it gives you more flexibility to set what those parameters look like and what's the qualifications to get somebody out. And it gives you more ability to have other referendums. You know, back when I was on council, there was a whole dispute on marijuana dispensaries coming into Marion. You know, you could have had referendums for things like that. You just can't exceed state authority on, you know, like criminal charges. We can't change who's a felon and what those perimeters are. And thank God for that. You know, you don't want to do that. And so again, that just dispels this thought process that this is just a process for people to run amok and create some kind of local kingdom. You simply can't do that. There's really like 3 forms of government you can choose from. Like I mentioned, you have the city manager and council form of government. We have our current mayor and council form of government. And then I think the city of Sandusky, at least is the one that comes to mind, is a city commission type of government. I think they have 3 or 5 what they call commissioners who are directly elected, and they essentially run everything.
And you can also have a mayor council administrator form.
That's a great point.
So there's a variety of options. And again, I think that, you know, if you want people to understand it, you know, stress the fact that the actual term is home rule city charter. And this goes back, just to go back a little bit further than 2018, the whole concept became constitutional in the state of Ohio when the state of Ohio's constitution was redrafted in 1912. And before that, Ohio, I think the constitution dated back to 1851. So Ohio's had a number of constitutional conventions in its 222 year history, 1803. And that was kind of a sticking point to get support by the people of Ohio for a new constitution. They said that the 1851 Constitution was a little bit too centralized for our liking. So we want to have more flexibility in running our own municipalities, running our own cities and towns, villages. So that was a concession that was necessary in order to get enough support for the new Constitution. And what's funny is that when you research it and you read the old newspaper articles of the day, what subject do you think everybody was one side or the other on what they wanted home rule charter government for? You guys know?
Man, you're better on that part than I am. You really dug some deep history out. I give you
Alcohol.
that.
Alcohol.
Oh, of course it was.
This was before prohibition was passed at the national level, at the federal level. So you had certain parts like Cincinnati, there were a bunch of German beer drinkers. So they wanted alcohol. But you had more conservative parts of the state, and they said, well, we want to pass a law in our town to ban alcohol. So this was used as a way, because under 1851, it was either a state law or it wasn't. You couldn't do anything like that. So this home rule city charter movement gave kind of new life to that prohibition effort. But it wasn't just about that. Again, it was about structuring governments. And you think how much government has grown in power and influence and just economies of scale over 100 years, 150 years. I mean, governments were really small back in the 1800s. And in a lot of ways, it was a lot better for people, because you didn't have government stealing your money and wasting it on all this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, now a city like Marion, I mean, it's what I think the fourth or fifth. I posted that on the page a while back. As far as number of employees, it's like it's up there. It's in the top 10 list of employers in the city of Marion.
Mm-hmm.
That never would have been the case. So it's quite large, and the budget is annual budget $60 to $70 million. So, you know, things have changed, and you got to have professionals
Yeah.
in those positions. And the only way that you're going to get the changes to your government that is tailored to your town and its needs is through a home rule city charter.
Mm-hmm.
So go
one
ahead,
of the
Jason.
biggest things that we're seeing, I know you guys have access to all the stats and everything just like I do, and I think a lot of people are getting ahead of the carriage here. They think that they're voting for the charter without getting the information first. That is the number one misunderstanding. And it took me a minute to grasp it. So I think that a lot of people that are, checking it out are going to check it out later. Are going to want to see if we're going to mention that one, because that's a big one. Can you guys explain what's going on in November?
Pull that up, Jason. Can you? You might have to scroll down a little bit, but I have
I'll pull it up on the watch page. It's a little easier to navigate.
The sample ballot.
Yeah, it's just the charter page. I've got it framed in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I see we have Councilman Chad Miller from the city of Kenton commenting. Hi, Chad. Thanks for watching, sir. We appreciate that. And he's out there spearheading their charter commission debate in the city of Kenton. So they're doing the same thing at the same exact time. So this isn't, kind of going back to what I was saying before, this isn't unheard of. In fact, I think it's the National League of Cities organization that put out a very in-depth study. I believe most cities across this country are charter communities from one degree to another. So, the fact that there's people saying that, we're so fearful of this because of the potential and the ramifications of, whatever. And it's like, that's just nonsense, because most communities are charter communities. Like, what is the real motivation behind not doing a city charter? What do we lose? They're talking about they want to fix the city auditor and treasurer. Well, how are you going to do that? You just going to find somebody off the street and put them in the office that doesn't know what they're doing? Like Mr. Miller said, we need vetted professionals that know what they're doing.
It's just looping. I'll have to see if I can find that. Yeah.
Well, then go to the Board of Elections if you can't. You can't pull up Facebook page, and just go to the Board of Elections and show people, because I think this is something that
it's important.
Do you want me,
Cody? Do you want to detail the process, or do you want me to detail the process?
Well, if we can get a visual.
So just to reiterate to our listeners out there, this is a very common process. It's a very transparent process, as we're going to show here soon. This is actually governed by the state of Ohio on how it works, what's going to be done. And the first step is to just form the commission. That's all we're trying to do right now, is to give us an opportunity to create something and let you have input as a regular citizen, attending meetings and voicing your opinion on what that should look like. This is the most democratic thing that we could do as a community.
Yeah, and you're going to have an opportunity to review if they approve this November of the forming of a charter commission. Then over the course of 6, 8, 10 months next year, the charter commission will convene and will draft the charter. And then at the November election next year, so 2026, what they come up with will be up for a final vote. But before they vote on it, a copy of the charter draft proposal will
Mhm.
be mailed to each registered voter in the city of Marion. So if they don't, if you don't like what they come up with, then by all means, vote it down.
Right.
But you won't know unless you give them an opportunity. And then it just comes down to, I did a post, comes down to, is it worth risking 60, $80,000 on the chance that a good charter is drafted? And that, that's a sizable amount of money. I'm not trying to balk at that, but the situation in Marion's government isn't exactly good on a lot of fronts,
Right.
and something needs to be done for sure.
Well, let me go back to, back to your point about 2018 and why this was brought up and so on. So just to give further background. So when I was running for city council, I was running on transparency. Let's have clearer budgets. Let's have more oversight, so on. Like, this is stuff. These are common themes we're talking about in 2025. I was talking about in 2017. And I wanted to see more modern financial reporting, like I would see in corporate America, or even in nonprofit America. Financial dashboards. What's your key performance indicators? All these different things. And so when I was on council, we actually passed a resolution, which is not an ordinance. It's different. It's basically a formal policy of the city council, but it doesn't really have teeth to it per se. But we wanted to at least put this out there that we had partnered with the Ohio Treasurer's Office in 2018 to bring in the Ohio Online Checkbook Tool. This was pioneered by former Ohio Treasurer Josh Mandel at the time. And it was a tool that every community in Ohio had access to put their checkbook online so constituents could see their data. And it was still kind of like archaic in a sense, like it was better than anything my predecessor had, or our local government had, as far as putting out data. All we ever put out was a 600-page audit report that nobody knows what that means because they're not experts on that stuff. And so I wanted to see things that was more bite-sized type information that people could digest and relate to help them make more informed decisions about what their government was doing and how it was serving them. So actually, former mayoral candidate and former councilman Kevin Norris had partnered with me on that. We reached out to our treasurer's office and we passed the resolution in 2018. We even had this sign that we hung up in City Hall saying, "Hey, we're a member of the Ohio checkbook tool." My predecessor would not use it. She created the thing, the link or whatever, and got it on the website, and it was like outdated. It was never updated. You couldn't get her to update it, and we had no power. Going back to where we are currently, council doesn't have power over current auditor McGinnis to really force her hand too much on doing certain things because they're limited since she's an elected official. So this really started in 2018. Council could not get the Democrat auditor at that time to really do what we were pushing them to do. And as a city council, when you're a governing board, if you make a decision and you have 9 people elected by our community saying this is what we want done, it probably should get done, especially when it comes to a budget or our reporting. But it didn't. And so that prompted me seeking other things and other options. And, again, that's how we got more in depth in the charter and talking about how can we make things more transparent with a charter and so on. And that's kind of was part of my platform too with when I ran for city auditor was, okay, let's make our finances more transparent. And that's why I created the Center for Community Engagement and Transparency. And I utilized a tool called ClearGov. And it was like a really state-of-the-art, like new software company out there. And it was pretty cool what we were able to do with it. And obviously that was kind of short-lived. But I followed through on that campaign promise. And that was a campaign promise I had all the way back in 2017. So I just want our listeners to know, again, we're not talking about new things. This is 8 years, 9 years in the making that we are talking about these things. So we're just trying to give you an opportunity tonight to get more informed.
Yeah. Well, Jay, I sent that to you, so it's on the second page. So this is a sample ballot from.
Oh, where's Mark Russell at?
You might try to sue us.
Oh my goodness. You'll have ABC 6 here in 45 minutes.
Sample. Let's write it all over there. It already is. See, sample. All right. So this is from just a random address in the city of Marion. So you can go on the Marion County Board of Elections website. You can plug in your address and you can see what your ballot is going to look like. And if you do that, this is the sample ballot that you will see for your respective races and issues. So on this one, page 2, Jason, pull that second page up.
I know,
if you would, sir.
Cody. I know. I can see the viewership going up. The Democrats are salivating right now, like a pack of hyenas.
Now, can you zoom in on that? So this is I'm going to use a big word here, a bifurcated ballot issue. So you've got 2 things that you're voting on with the charter, and they are separate of each other. So the first part, as you can see, can you zoom in on that, Jason? My eyes are getting older by the day. I'm going to be wearing spectacles like the 2 of you guys. All right. So, shall a commission be chosen to frame a charter? Yes. Meaning, yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's see what these 15 people come up with. Let's give them an opportunity.
Right.
Or no, I do not want to give them a chance to draft a home rule city charter. Now, if you vote no, you can still select the candidates, which are featured in the second part of that charter question. There's 23 total individuals that are running for the commission. You can select up to 15. Up to 15. Now, I'm going to stress, don't think that you have to select 15 unless you think that there are 15 people out of those 23 that warrant your vote. If there's only 4, then only vote for 4. If there's 8, 6, whatever. Or maybe you do want to select all 15 just so you can, say that you picked your choice of 15 out of the 23. However you want to do it, that's what you can do. Now, if you vote no, I don't want to give them an opportunity to draft a charter. Then if you want to say, I'm not voting for any, I'm not going to fill out the second part, it's still valid. You've cast your vote of no on the charter, and you can leave it at that.
Right.
So, any comments on the sample ballot, Robert?
Well, first of all, my first experience with a sample ballot was I got prosecuted for the sample ballot, and having Columbus media on election day at my house within 45 minutes of the charges being filed. Everybody knows, everybody's seen it. Even Democrats.
And that was on election day.
On
they didn't even let you celebrate your stunning victory.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And on the Democrat page, they were crying in the comments that Landon still won despite it. I mean, you could see it was a clear hit job that they wanted to try to take the wind out of my sails on election day in hopes to get voters to vote against me, thinking I was this criminal. And it got voted down twice, or struck down twice in court, first in local court by a visiting judge, and then in the appeals court by a 3-panel group of judges. And Russell was rebuked twice for basically coming to the court with an amateur case. And this is, as you can see, this is something anybody can get. It's public record. We argued constitutional rights. You have a First Amendment right to circulate a public record document. There's this older lady. I don't know her name. I've never met her personally, but I've seen her throughout my time here growing up, where she will go out and put flyers on people's cars and parking lots, against tax, against this, against that. And she prints all kinds of stuff. And she's never been prosecuted. I mean, they prosecuted me because I was the biggest threat to the establishment in 20, 30, 40 years. And we're going to get deeper into that, right, Jay? We're going to get deeper into that here soon.
Yeah, we got piles of data on that.
I hope they're ready for that.
Knows that too.
There's so much to this story.
Well, we were around when it started. I didn't get to watch the fireworks show afterwards. I had to step away for a while, but we were there, like when all that stuff was going down, and I've never seen a more disturbing display of political fanaticism in my entire life anywhere I've ever lived. It was
I mean, just to go back on that, not only did that happen on election day with the charges before, I can't remember if it was before the charges were announced and it hit media, but you had former councilman Josh Daniels in his pickup truck with a big old sign that said, "Vote for Kelly Carr. She shows up." Like, for one, like, what's that even mean? Like, I was showing up to council meeting. I was doing my job. So, like, it was just insane. And I think there was even a dispute, like, was he campaigning within the 100-foot or 100-yard regulation from a polling location? It was a whole show on election day. And so, just to get into it, I mean, we're not publishing anything that you're not allowed to see or that you can't see yourself. So, like I said, the Democrats are salivating over that. They probably were looking for what our next mishap. So
we're just trying to spread awareness about this right now. Honestly,
I sent you another document, Jay, from the charter information page, and it's, I think, 15 questions or something that I came up with. And I think that if you get an opportunity, if you're serious about investigating this issue and being an informed voter, these are the questions that I think that you need to be asking of these individuals. And if you don't have an opportunity at the time, before the election, because November 4th is going to be here before we know it. And with about a third of Marion voters historically voting early, a lot of people are going to be casting ballots on this issue and others without probably a good amount of information. So these are 15 questions, and I think that kind of boils down to what the big questions are when you're talking about drafting a charter. And a lot of people out there probably won't have a good understanding of the seriousness of the challenges that Marion's facing today, and the historical context that these challenges have been pervasive for the past 50 years.
yeah,
And had we passed a charter, because this happened before, this happened in 1953, and voters commissioned the charter commission. They said, yep, we want to give these people an opportunity. And then they voted on their 15, and those 15 people went to work the following year drafting a charter. Well, Marion voters didn't like what they came up with, and they voted it down. So there was a precedent, but had a charter been in place from 54 moving on, the history of Marion probably would be a lot different than what it is. And it's been 50 years of stagnation at best and decline at worst, or realistically. So you have to be able to adapt, and that's what a charter enables you to do. So these questions here, so let's scroll up, and for the reading impaired, I suppose, I will go ahead and read them off. So what form of charter government do you support? A weak mayor council form, a strong mayor council form, a council city manager form, or a mayor council administrator, or a commission form? Now, this is critically important because, do you continue to elect? So just take, for example, the one option, sticking with a mayor and a council. So you're going to elect the mayor, and you're going to elect council. Is that working? Do we have a history of good, competent mayors? That's a question. It's not commentary on my part. It's a question. Would you be better served, do you think, with a professional, somebody that has a proven track record, not only with education, and education for a city manager is typically going to be a master's of public administration, so a graduate level degree specifically in administering government or nonprofits, and then a proven track record. So you say, hey, we're going to hire this person. They were the city manager for Findlay, and man, they did a hell of a job in Findlay. So
Hey, I like Findlay. Findlay does do a really good job.
yeah, Findlay's a great town.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing where you're able to hire. So like in that example of a city manager, you're able to hire that individual.
Right.
And they can live in Delaware County. They could live in Marion County. You're not restricted to an elector or somebody that lives in Marion and is registered to vote in Marion. So you're opening that pool of qualified candidates. And again, we're not talking about running a lemonade stand by the side of the road. We're talking about a 60 to 70 million dollar budget company, essentially, is what government is today. I mean, think of all the tentacles of government out there and what it controls and how it influences you.
Mhm.
It's a big deal. You want the best people. If I work for a company, private industry, I want a good CEO, a
Mhm.
chief executive officer, and I want a good board.
Mhm.
So that's what it is. Council is the board, and the CEO is the city manager or the mayor. And that's what we're talking about here. Now,
Yeah.
number two, do you support the replacement of the elected city treasurer and elected city auditor with an appointed director of finance?
Yes.
If
Double yes.
so, would the director of finance be appointed by the mayor or city council? If so, would the director of finance report to the city council or the mayor? If so, who would the appointed director of finance be required to reside in the city of Marion, or could he or she reside outside of the city?
Cody, let's talk about that if we can. Can we stop here on that one?
Yeah. I want to have a discussion on each of these, and let's just
Yeah, because that's important to mention, because it's really not an either or per se. I mean, it could be, but it could be both. For instance, like when you say, or when the question asks, is the finance director appointed by the mayor or council? Here's what I think. I was going to ask you guys what you think, where the commission will probably likely go. And I think it's at I think it's going to be where we keep a mayor and we appoint the finance director and law director like we do at the federal level. And what I think probably makes most sense, again, I'm open as a potential commission member, but I think personally what makes most sense is having that a person necessarily hired by your council and your mayor in an open meeting and interview processes, and then your mayor is going to have the final say because it's his administration who he can work with. He decides who he's going to hire, and appoint them, but then it still has to be confirmed by council. So it's really like a both type situation. Like, president has cabinet members that have to be confirmed by the Senate. So you could probably even branch that out to where, I don't know, where there's a committee, if it's not the whole council. I'm sure there's probably flexibility with that, but I think it makes most sense, if it's just 9 council members, to make the whole council confirm.
Yeah, and I'm not running for commission. I'm just, like I said, doing this as a public service to try to provide information to the citizens of Marion on the charter issue. But my personal opinion, that's probably what I would look at doing, is allowing a appointment with confirmation by council. And the other thing to stress with this is, if you scroll down through the feed on the charter information page, I posted examples. I posted organizational charts of how these other charter cities that are of comparable size to the city of Marion. Marion's roughly a population of 35,000 people. So when you're researching, comparable cities, you're looking at the 30,000-40,000 people
Right.
range. And an overwhelming majority, I think all but 2, I think there's 17 cities or something. I have that all on the page. All but 2, including the city of Marion, are charter cities. Well, like I said, check out their organizational charts. How do they structure their government? How, you can check out their charters. So, if you want to read any specific item, look up the city of Mason, Ohio, one of the comparable cities, which happens to be a charter city. Look up Westerville. Look at, and do some research on which
Marysville.
Marysville, yeah. Well, not in the same range yet. They're growing. They're booming. I mean,
They're
you
close.
look at the growth. Marysville was a little podunk, cow town back when I was, running. My parents had a store, had a branch office in Marysville. It was nothing. And that was 25, 30 years ago.
Mhm.
Now, no, it's big time. And, was the charter, is that the difference? We're not that much farther from Columbus Metro than what
Right.
Marion is, and yet you look at the 2 stories. And Marion had a much bigger head start. I mean, we were,
Mhm.
if you look, our heyday was, 1890 to 1930. Drive around Marion. If you throw a rock in any direction, you'll probably hit a building that was built during that time period. So that's kind of your clue on when things were at their prime.
Man, I don't know.
So
The 50s were still popping though.
they had a resurgence. There's a resurgence. But if
Yeah.
you look at, when, like I said, throw a rock in any direction in the city limits.
My grandpa would tell me that in the 50s and 60s, right before when it started changing in the 70s with, the unions and whatnot, that you could literally quit your job, get fired, whatever the case may be, on a Monday, and later that day get hired at another company here in Marion, and even starting. That's how abundant jobs were back then.
Oh yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's all gone by the wayside over the past 50 years.
My mom, she's an elder of the community and quite a bit older than me, and she remembers when Marion was still doing good, and she's loving seeing all this revitalization and cleaning up of things, and the things that people like Naomi and stuff help with, try to get the blight out, and seeing the downtown be restored and businesses coming in. And she's like, it's kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of when I was younger. Like, I assume she's talking in her late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, and that's not to detract to say that there haven't been good strides within the past 10 years.
Right.
I'm not saying that. I think If you look back at 2008, 2016 era, that was pretty rough in a lot of respects. So it's all relative, and it's, there's highs and lows and things like that. What you want is sustainable growth. If you're a business, that's what you're desiring.
Yeah.
You want sustainable growth. You don't want to grow too fast where you can't sustain it, or where it's artificial. It needs to be organic. It needs to be organic, sustainable growth.
Hey,
So,
Cody, you want to read us what's question number 3 there, Mr. Higley?
3 is, would you reform the elected position of law directors so that it is an appointed position? If so, would city council appoint the law director? If so, would the appointed law director be required to live in the city? That's another thing that there isn't enough discussion about,
Yes.
is just the current lack of licensed attorneys who reside in the city of Marion. I've talked about it I did an article with the research on the charter information page. I've brought it up in discussions about the charter with several of our guests. If you look into it, there's 18 licensed attorneys residing in the city of Marion. Median age is, I believe it's 68 years old. So majority of those 18 are retired, or they're the type that just never quit until they're dead and planted 6 feet under. And there's a lot of those folks. They just never give up.
You know why we need to really talk about this, Cody? Some people are probably wondering, well, what's this got to do with the charter? Because I think most people are only hearing it about the city auditor and treasurer, right? That's like obviously what's dominating the talk, and there's obviously some really good reasons for that. But we also have some really good reasons to be talking about a law director position, as you mentioned. Number one, I want to say, it's like we have Biden in the law director's office with his auto pen. It's just like, somebody's doing it for Russell, or Russell's just going through the motions. I mean, how many times does this guy hire outside legal counsel? I mean, it's almost on like every other issue we're hiring outside legal counsel. And what's the purpose? These people are like, well, how are you going to pay for a private law director from outside the city? And where are we going to get the money? Well, okay, we're going to pay $20,000, $30,000 extra to hire somebody, and we're going to save another $20,000 and $30,000 on top of that, because we're still hiring outside help with law firms. So, and to your point, there's just not enough talent. So even if we're stuck with, God forbid, we're stuck with Mark Do Nothing Russell for another 4, 5, 8 years. If we're stuck with him and then he retires, then who's going to replace him? That's the problem. And then whoever replaces him, we're probably stuck with them for another 20, 30 years. And how's that give our community choices and the ability to have succession planning, like you mentioned, as a local government?
Exactly. I mean, there's less representation. You want to talk about representation? If you literally are stuck with one law director for 32 years because there's nobody around to run against them, what choice do you have?
Yeah.
And or the law director's replacement,
And I'm surprised Grogan didn't beat him in 15. Like, I don't know what happened there.
Well, Grogan was new to the area. He's in New York State. He's
a
not
New
local.
Yorker.
Yeah, he's not local or anything like that. So coming in, goes to Ohio Northern, and probably did the internship program they have in the prosecutor's office. I suspect. I don't know that for a fact, but and that's the other reality of that question. If you were to say, oh, well, there might be some recent law grad that happens to move into Marion. We can't predict the future, and they may run. Well, maybe, or they don't get elected, and you get some, other incompetent in there or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just makes a lot more sense to me as far as having the best people in the positions is to be able to hire those individuals, and they can be fired if they're not doing a good job. It's like right now, the auditor, the treasurer, the law director, you name it. What do you do? What do you do if they're really bad at their job and you want to get rid of them? Well, under the current system, the only realistic option is to say, well, in 2 or 4 years, we'll go to the polls and we'll vote them out. That's democracy in action, folks. Okay, well then you could have somebody. Nobody ran against Miranda McGinnis. Nobody runs a lot of the times over the past 32 years against Mark Russell.
Hey,
So
stop.
where's your democracy in action when you don't have choice? I'd rather have somebody that is better qualified, that we can hire from outside the area, is competent, that has credentials, and if they're not doing a good job, then fire their asses.
Yeah. When you made such a good point there, Cody, like back in when Miranda McGinnis ran last time, if the Democrats were so upset with her performance, why would you not run somebody? Like, for the love of God, like, as much as they have parroted propaganda about this and that, and some facts, obviously, like it's a mess. Like, she has taken the $154,000 IRS mistake from my employee to 10 times that. And among of other things that we're going to probably get into.
Yeah,
soon.
we'll definitely get deep into that. But Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's somewhere in the $500,000 range.
The last figure I heard at the regular session of council, I think it was brought up that it was $573,000 in gross IRS fines and penalties. So I think that's been abated, negotiated down to some lesser. No,
I don't think it's been abated. The only thing I think has been abated so far is what happened during my tenure. And then again, for our listeners, again, IRS penalties should not happen, right? Nobody says that should be allowable or defendable. But the problem is you have people like Sean Spears, the local podcaster out there, claiming that these are like new things and it's only the Republican that did this and so on. And it's like, Kelly Carr in her last year in office was year 12. You want to talk about experience now. In year 12, ended up having $22,500 in IRS penalties. Granted, it's less money, but that's still almost enough money to buy a police cruiser, at least back in my council tenure and auditor tenure, it was close to it. So it's still inexcusable. If we're going to talk about the principle of it, it's the principle of it. Not to mention the fact that they had people stealing money in utility billing in 2015. So, I mean, if we're going to, parrot facts, let's be real and talk facts. But isn't it weird? Do you guys think it's weird that the Democrats would not run somebody? I mean, if it was Republicans, I mean, my God, I would think that the Republican Party would do their best to run somebody when there's prime opportunity to do so.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the other part of this. It just kind of goes, it supports what we're talking about with the lack of human capital in the form of candidates for auditor position, treasurer position, law director position. What about these, council positions or mayor? They run. Look at the Democrats ran Glenn Coble, and he didn't even want to do it. He admitted that, and he showed it his lackluster campaign. So, okay, yeah, we got a real barn burner on the mayor race. Well, that might be another example of why you need to consider a city manager. And that's not criticizing, the current mayor or any of the former ones. It's just looking ahead. Do we have the people that are going to be able to run this city competently and into the future?
Well, let's be real. They were so accustomed to their system, their establishment system for 20 plus years that they controlled, that it worked, and they were fearful of change because then they were fearful of not being able to control it anymore. So the people that want to talk about this whole control thing and fearing people, the electorate over the charter, we really need to point the fingers at the Democrats who were in power for 20 years. I mean, I wish, Jay, I wish at some point, maybe in the future we could, because you're not prepared for this. I wish we could get the picture of former Mayor James Scott Schertzer at the Elks Building on election night. And the guy just looks completely wasted because he was fearful that he was going to lose to Kevin Norris. And, unfortunately, Sue McGowan took enough votes from Kevin Norris to, keep Schertzer in play there. But Schertzer never had an opponent neither. Going back to your point, Cody, really, if we want to even look at it, thankfully we have somebody like Bill Collins. Whether you like him or dislike him, the man served, 20 some 30 years in law enforcement. He knows enough to at least do the job and be competent enough. So, but you had somebody like James Scott Schertzer, who was just lucky to get in there and then lucky to even keep the office. I mean, he had Jean Hoffman run against him in 2015, and God bless her. She's such a nice lady. She'd give her shirt off her back to people, but she just couldn't campaign. She didn't get out there, and he won with 60 some percent. Imagine somebody like Robert Landon or Kevin Norris in 15, or my goodness, Cody Higley, bro. I think you would have beat him in 2015. Like, Schertzer just was not like really a likable enough candidate. He just never really faced true opposition. And it's very interesting that as soon as there was whispers of Bill Collins getting ready to run, Schertzer hightailed it out because he knew he was going to lose. And he wanted to keep his, undefeated mayor record. But, if you're Ohio State and you're going up against, Harding High School, it's just not a fair match, right? You could be the best high school football team, but it's just not fair to compare that.
Yeah, I don't know anything. I don't remember anything about that picture, but I definitely have the old articles from all the political games that were going on at that time. That's super fun.
It was in Marion Star. It was a big talk with the Republican Party. Everybody was just making fun of the guy for. He was flushed. He had a flushed face. He looked like he just got running. Like, it just looked like sweat was running down his forehead. It was just, you never really saw him like that. He had to go out there with his slicked back hair and, probably a little bit of blush and eyeliner every time he stepped outside. And so, to see him like that, it was very, very, it was very telling of what their thought process was. They knew going into election, I was going to win. That's why they had to do what they did on election day. They called it the Landon machine or whatever it was.
We knew it too. We were watching the stats the whole time.
Oh yeah. So sorry, Cody. I didn't mean to get derailed.
Oh
there.
no.
I think that's something else we haven't talked about, really. Even with the mayor candidates, how did we get stuck with Schertzer for so long?
Right, and you had it's not normal.
Right.
If you research Marion's electoral history for the mayoral races in terms of office, this whole dynasty thing that we had with Jack Kellogg for 16 years, followed by Schertzer for 16 years, that was not normal. Like, typically, in the earlier years, mayors in Marion served 2-year terms. Then they changed it, I think, in the mid 60s to 4-year terms. But even when you're under the 4-year, most of them were 1 or 2 terms, and then it was somebody else. You had good competition back when Marion was prosperous and doing well. It wasn't until the last 50 years, as we said, of stagnation or decline, that you kind of got these dynasties. And how much of it is due to the fact that you didn't have a big old pool of qualified candidates. Because the other thing to point out, folks, and I've talked about it before, I posted the study. There was a Pew study, PEW, and it's one of those think tanks out there, a bunch of eggheads that research different questions and things. Well, they looked into an estimated percentage of Americans who will run for elected office, not be elected, who will run for elected office in their lifetimes. It's 2%. So 2%. Well, you can
Yeah.
run the figures on Marion. You've got roughly 35,000 people, 18,000 people are registered to vote. And let's just say, take 2%, or you look at a particular field. So if you're talking like an auditor, you want somebody with some background in accounting or something like that. Um, you're not talking about a lot of people. So those are all just the realities. It's a demographic reality that we're in, and it's not just Marion. It's just Marion's problems with its demographics are made worse by the constraints of the statutory system of government
Amen.
that Columbus dictates on it. We cannot adapt what we have going on here because Columbus politicians are saying you guys have to do it this way. So let's go on to question number 4. We'll try to kind of run through these a little bit more quickly so we can
I think we did 4, right?
get you all to bed. We're on 4. So would you keep salaries of elected and appointed officials and other city employees the same, or would you seek to increase them? I think that's a good question. You don't want these self-interested candidates because there are a lot of city employees. There are a lot of public sector employees that are running for the charter commission. So you don't want them to go in there and say, ooh, what can we get for my department or for me specifically? That's why ideally none of these city employees would be even eligible. Unfortunately, the law has said that you can for the most part, unless you're currently serving on city council, if you're um, a legislator like that. Um, so, I would want a commitment from these city employees that they're not going to try to do anything funny like that and say, oh, well, we're going to make the law director, instead of making whatever he's at, $90,000, I'm going to make him 150 or 170. Or the same thing with the mayor. Mayor's also running for charter commission. Well, the mayor should not be advocating for sticking, if he's going to say the mayor council form remains, probably shouldn't be advocating for a strong mayor form, and he probably shouldn't be advocating for changing the mayor's salary from whatever it is, 69 or 75,000 now, and say that, oh, the mayor should be making 170,000. You got to keep this honest and
Yeah, I
maintain
think you'll see.
integrity.
I think if they change the financial comp structure, and I'm sure you have to do something, and it doesn't have to be drastic. With a law director, if he's making 60, you could bump it up to 80, 90. Like I said, we're paying at least that with additional fees when we hire outside counsel. And then when you think about how much we pay Auditor McGinnis, and then with a treasurer, you're at 80 there. You could bump that up to another 10, and you're competitive. And then everybody that takes these jobs knows what they're getting into. You don't always fully get into it for just the salary too. You get into it for benefits. You're investing into PERS, state pension, job stability. There's a lot of intangible benefits that come with these jobs that attracts candidates to those jobs.
Right. I just, my personal thought, I mean, we're allowed to disagree, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Is that if they're trying to run for charter commission, you should not do anything, excuse yourself from that particular part of the discussion.
Yeah.
It should not be, let me benefit my position. That to me, that's a conflict of interest, whether or not the law wants to recognize it as such. And that's about integrity. So maintain your integrity. If the other people think, that there should be drastic increases or something, because I just don't think government's big enough. They spend enough money. If you want to talk about reallocating resources, for like an example of, attracting a highly qualified city manager or even a law director or director of finance, that's different. But I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't go on the commission and if I'm one of these city employees and say, oh yeah, my position needs to be making 30% more.
Right.
Okay, I'll give you 30% more. That's
Yeah.
not how it should work. All right, number 5, would you create or eliminate any city departments or positions? Efficiency is in tailoring. That's the key to the home rule city charter. And one of the primary reasons it's attractive is because you're not hampered by these organizational restraints that the state of Ohio has placed on you. So I think it's also an opportunity for Charter Commission to kind of use it as a doge, Robert.
I was gonna say this is probably one of the most intriguing questions that the Charter Commission could debate that has not been debated yet. And I don't really have a thought on that. To be quite honest, I've thought about it, but I haven't thought about it in depth enough to really give a qualified opinion, so to speak, on that particular subject, because there's been so many other things we've had to deal with and talk about. So I really look forward to, if I do get the honor of being on the Charter Commission and it does get passed to create the commission, it would be so fun to talk about that, to see, really what can we do to make this a better city. Maybe it stays the same, but where are our efficiencies? Where are our cost of scale? Where can we really maximize our dollars? And it goes back to, again, the Center for Community Engagement and Transparency. Well, I don't know why they never carried that on. If they were so adamant about transparency, and remember, we just, Ayers Ratliff and Jason Schaber, the dynamic duo that really cared about where our money was going. Nobody ever really advocated for that transparency center again. So, the time for talk is over. We're really this is where the rubber meets the road, and I think we're gonna have some fun with that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, it's kind of exciting. You think about if you had an opportunity to be in Philadelphia, when they were drafting our nation's first constitution,
Mm-hmm.
and how, what ideas do you have? What are your reasons for those? Can you defend them out on the floor and in the public debate? So it is kind of exciting from that standpoint too, and presents a lot of opportunities. I mean, it really does, within a framework. We're not talking, you can't come up with anything crazy. You can't say, well, we're going to create the king of Marion and something like that, and he's going to be king for life, and it's going to be a hereditary or inherited title or something like that. You can't.
Then we'll have another no kings protest.
Right. Yeah. We don't want any more of those. All right, number 6.
Cody, do you want to stop at this one? You think this is a good stopping point? I think we're about halfway, and then we can do a part 2 episode on the rest. Is that, you guys cool with that? I'm
up. Yeah, we can do it. I will go through 6 here. Actually, how many do we got? 15?
Oh, okay.
Is there 15 or 13? How many? Okay, let's do, how about we do half of them? So let's do 7. So quickly get 6 and 7 done here. Would you seek to increase property tax rates by eliminating the 1% 10 mil cap? That's an option too. They can mess with your caps on your property tax rates. So I would want an assurance that there isn't any interest in doing that,
right?
Because property taxes are already outrageous, and that problem is something that the citizens of Ohio, a good number of them, are trying to address on their own because of the incompetency of our state leaders over the past 100 years, better part of the last 50 years. I mean, property taxes have existed as the primary way that government, that was the original way that government funded itself. We didn't have a state income tax in the state of Ohio until 1972. We didn't have the sales tax until I think 1937, and we didn't have a federal income tax until 1913. So it's been the era of big government over the past 100 years. So there's a lot of tax reform that needs to be done across the board, and the charter should not, in my opinion, be utilized to increase the tax burden on the citizens of Marion. Number 7, and we'll end with that one. If you are elected to the Charter Commission and you currently serve as an elected official or employed by the city, will you recuse yourself from votes that present a conflict of interest? Again, they don't have to, and it's going to be difficult to do it, but it kind of goes back to my point that I made a couple questions ago, that it just can't be used for self-interest, like direct self-interest. Like, it cannot be used for that purpose. Would you agree with that, Robert?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody should want the highest ethical standard to be followed, and really the main people that are being put into question is the mayor and law director. And naturally, when you work so hard for an elected office, you want to protect your position there. And
well, the police, to be fair, the Marion Police,
true.
You got Chief McDonald's running. You got a number of uniform wearing police officers. So that cannot be used for a power grab for the Marion Police Department.
I mean, let's be real. Jay, let's not investigate McDonald is literally only running for the Charter Commission to protect the police union interests. I mean, that's really the main thing. Nobody has even talked about, and this just goes to show their fear. Nobody's talking about doing anything with the police union or anything like that. I don't even know fully, because I'm not the legal scholar here, but I don't even know fully if you could even do away with a police union. I think all of us here are pro-police. We're not anti-police, we're pro-police. And so it is kind of odd that, he's running. There's so many people from the police department running. And granted, these guys are public servant guys, right? They've been in police positions for years. But why it's stacking so heavily? Like, I was kind of asking that question last time. Like, why don't we have Chief Dean from the fire department? Why didn't he get put in there? Was he told not to, or did he not want to? Because I know our fire department, love and respect those guys too. They have their own union and they have interests to protect. And so it is a really interesting question. I think Mayor Collins genuinely wants what's best for Marion. Whether you agree with him, whether you disagree with him, I've had enough conversations and worked with Mayor Collins long enough to know where his interest really lies. And I think he really wants what's best for Marion. I think Mr. Russell, and I've talked to enough people. This isn't my bias, because he's a malicious prosecutor. It's not because of anything like that. He wants to protect his position because he knows what's at risk. And I think a lot of people have an interest in making that an appointed position.
Yeah, it's not to say that it's impossible to be a city employee with an obvious vested interest or a self-interest. It's not impossible for you to be non-biased or to overcome that self-interest to do what is best for the people of Marion. It is possible, but you really got to watch yourself. You got to watch your approach. And
Cody, and I know we're running out of time, guys. I know we're trying to wrap it up here. One last thing, and speaking on some of these people in the commission, we have a wide range of people that are running. So luckily, because of the diversity in Marion voters do have an option. We have liberals, we have conservatives, we have people in between. You do have people like, I mean, everybody I think loves Major BJ Gruber. Major BJ Gruber is a good guy. He's running for the commission. And so, again, even if they have interest to protect, like some of them are just good, genuine people. And so, Lois Fisher, she's done a lot for the community. I know there's people that like and dislike some of the things that she's done over the years too, but that's with everybody. And so we have an opportunity to just let's get it on the ballot and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like it's here. You're going to potentially risk $80,000 in postage and in hiring the consultant, the attorney consultant. But something's got to be done. That's the way I look at it. Now, whether or not this group of people are going to be able to accomplish the task of drafting a superior form of government in the form of a charter, that's yet to be seen. And do you risk the $80,000 on that group of people? But it needs a charter. That's my contention. I mean, it absolutely needs these reforms that only a charter will bring. So if it doesn't happen this time, I don't know. I mean, we're going to be here again. So I would rather let that 8 people out of the 15 that are going to be filling seats on that charter commission. If I can pick 18 or 8 of them controlling share, and go to the meetings. These are going to be publicly held meetings. Go there, post on social media, speak out on what needs to be done when they're drafting it. Put pressure on those charter commission candidates to make sure that they get the job done and they do it well. And it puts us in the very best position that we can be in moving forward, because we've had enough dysfunction. We've had enough decline. It's time for things to turn around. And we've got other positive things going on. Don't get me wrong. I'm not Debbie Downer constantly or anything like that. But you have to have historical perspective. And I do, as far as that goes. And it doesn't take much to realize where we were and where we are today in the grand scheme of things in the history of this city. So I hope you enjoyed this kind of in-depth discussion. There's so much to talk about when you're talking
every
about.
time I hear the cost thing come up, just so I interject here, looking at all the information that we have obtained and that we store, and you guys both have access to everything I've got access to, I'm like, look how much it's already cost. You know what I mean?
That's a very good point, Jay. I mean, we've spent a lot of money on mistakes, incompetencies, battles, whatever you want to say. Like, it's cost a lot of money. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not a tremendous amount of money to invest on a chance for a huge payoff that's going to potentially lift all ships. I mean, that's what we're kind of going for, right, Robert?
Absolutely. And I just want to be crystal clear to our listeners too. I think you were even kind of alluding to it, Cody. Even if this doesn't get passed in November, it's not going away, because enough of us care so much about our community. It's going to come back again, because we know it's just really a matter before enough people just realize the actual value of the charter, that maybe even if it doesn't pass this time, it's just because enough people don't fully understand it. But it's not because the support isn't there. And we're not going to give up. We're going to keep fighting for Marion and give you an opportunity to have the best government possible. So just putting that out there, we're not going to give up.
Yeah. I mean, just out of necessity. I mean, that's where things are. I mean, so we're going to probably do a part 2, try to finish up. How many days we got? 14 days. That
I'm sure we can get on inside the next
15
week.
days.
Yeah.
until the election. So I highly encourage you to share this video, like it, share it, get it out there, refer people to Robert's page, Marion Needs a Charter, my page, the charter information page, Marion, Ohio, and you know, go through it. There's a lot of stuff. I typically post uh every day, every other day for the past, I don't know, 3 months, something like that. So there's a lot of content on there. Scroll down, read it, think about it, because this whole system of government that we have, representative democracy or whatever the hell you want to talk about what we have nowadays, it doesn't work unless we the people do our jobs, and we or have virtue, and we make informed decisions when it comes to our elections, and we hold our
Right.
leaders accountable and all that happy horse shit. It doesn't work unless we do it. And
Mhm.
if we're not going to do it, if we're just going to say, oh, everybody universal suffrage, everybody vote and just mail it in or whatever, no, that's the worst way to run a government. The absolute worst way, worst form of government possible. So you got to do your part. So do
Yes.
it. And Wednesday, we've got another show on the books or scheduled. It's going to be Ben Weber, who is running as a Republican candidate for the 86th district of Ohio for the Ohio state rep. So be sure to tune in. What time are we doing that one? Is that 7:30?
8 p.m. Yep.
8 p.m.
Yeah,
So
he's
you
very
won't want
polite.
to,
Responds right away. I mean, Wes did too. So good. Both of them are
yeah.
quick
So
to
you won't want
respond.
to miss that show. And any closing remarks, Robert?
No, I just thank you for tuning in tonight. We really appreciate you spending time with us and just hearing our perspectives. We know we can get a little funny, we can interject our own commentary, but at the end of the day, we still hope to bring you the facts with the commentary. And so please reach out to one of us, reach out to the Operation Marion Watchmen page, give us feedback, directly message us, because we can only get better if we know what you're looking for and how we can better serve you. Because even as watchmen ourselves, that's what we're here for, is to serve you. And so that's the whole goal of this team and this podcast.
And the community's been, I mean, you guys can both attest and the others can in comments if they want. We've gotten a whole lot of data from the public, just since Cody's been on board. And, Landon already knows we get stuff, but this time around, since probably about February, we've steadily been getting more and more crazy stuff that people want us to look into, and we're going through it. It's definitely interesting.
Indeed, it is. All right. Well, for Robert Landon, Jason Foreman, I'm Cody Higley, and this has been the Watchman's Report. Remember, everybody out there, a watchman is always vigilant. So until next time, take care.